I want to talk about the craziness when it comes to autoimmune diseases and the HPV vaccine, because a lot of people are saying that their child or even themselves have a now lifelong autoimmune disease. What is that? Multiple sclerosis, autoimmune thyroiditis, type 1 diabetes, you name it. A lot of people are saying that they didn't have it before they got the HPV vaccine, and sure enough, here it is. Well, there was a paper that came out in 2017 that claims it looked at this. Did people who have autoimmune diseases have a higher rate of HPV vaccine exposure compared to those who did not, or what they called controls or referents? But this study is very misleading. So if you look at it, at first glance, it looks like the cases are the women who had some form of autoimmune disease, and they looked back to see if they had HPV vaccine exposure. And they compared those to controls, which at first looks like women who did not have autoimmune diseases, and looked at their exposure to HPV. And what they concluded was, see, both groups had HPV vaccine exposure. It was actually a slightly higher exposure in the control or the referent group than in the cases group. Therefore, autoimmune diseases are not caused by the HPV vaccine because both groups had HPV and this group is the one that had autoimmune diseases. But if you look at the details of the study, it is shocking. In Table 2, it indicates that it wasn't just the cases who had autoimmune diseases. The referents also had autoimmune diseases. What they did in this study is if a case had type 1 diabetes, their control or their referent that they compared that person to couldn't have type 1 diabetes, but they could have any of the others. As long as the case and the control didn't have the exact same autoimmune disease, then they could be compared to each other. Well, no wonder there was no difference in autoimmune diseases if the same autoimmune diseases were seen in both groups. What they should have done is looked at the girls who had autoimmune diseases and compared them to the girls who didn't have autoimmune diseases, and then decide, did they have a difference in their HPV vaccine exposure? Also, the people who ran this study was the Laser Analytica group out of France, and they pulled from the exact same database their cases and their controls, so they could decide who was a case and who was a control. So this paper people will quote saying, this shows that the HPV vaccine doesn't cause autoimmune diseases. And to that I say, absolutely not. If you know anything about this paper and the methods of this paper, you would throw it in the trash can.